Okay. Cool. All right. So I'm just going to start with like a little blurb saying, I'm joined by you and what you do, and thanks for joining me. And then we'll dive into the questions.
Okay.
All right. Cool. So today I'm joined by Gary Garcia, who is the CEO of Maximum. Not Maximum. Sorry. All right, we'll try
No
this
problem.
again. All right. Okay. Here we go. Maxim Capital, a real estate investment company based in Fresno. Cool. Today, I'm joined by Gary Garcia, who is the CEO of Maxim Capital, a real estate investment company based out of Fresno, California. Gary, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Erik.
Wonderful. And let's dive right into this. So what exactly is Maxim Capital, if you were to put it in a few words?
We are a real estate investment company. We're based here out of California, and we do most of our business in Texas and California, but focus on wholesaling and also flipping locally.
Wonderful. And so can you tell us exactly what wholesaling is? So there may be people on the podcast who have maybe heard of the term before, but don't really know what it means at a fundamental level.
Sure. I mean, so I actually didn't know what it was up until about 4 years ago, but it's where someone finds a distressed property. It could be abandoned, facing foreclosure, one reason or another, and that person gets the house under contract with the seller, usually for about 50, 60, 70% of the after repair value. And they then sell that contract to an investor for an increased price. So they might get it under contract for $200,000 and resell that contract to an investor for $230,000 without having to actually purchase the property or put their money into it. They're just simply exchanging and selling the paper to that end buyer, who's a house flipper most of the time.
Got it. So how is someone able to then get that paper without putting the 20% down that usually comes along with real estate investing?
Right. So, usually when you buy a house, a lot of people have bought one house. You have an inspection period and you have a close period. It's normally, say 30 days. So if they go to, to the seller, they negotiate, get it under contract. During that 30-day time period, that's the window where they then find the end buyer without having to put any money down. If you go past that date, then, like a normal transaction, you're going to have to purchase the property outright, then resell it, but then you're going to have to pay for the closing costs, commissions, and, those sort of things. But most of these properties are all off market.
Wow. And so how are you finding these off-market properties exactly?
Yeah, so we actually do a lot of cold calling. We have virtual assistants that call. They're based out of the Philippines and some in Mexico. So we're doing about 50,000 cold calls per month, which isn't too big. There's the big guys, the sharks, the gurus are doing about 100, 200,000. So if you want to talk about scale, and then we also do about 30,000 text messages per month. You might see those signs that on the street corners or on the poles that say "We buy houses cash." So that's exactly what we do. Most of those guys are either wholesalers or they could be house flippers.
Got it. So it's basically like someone is scouting for houses that are perhaps under foreclosure, but they're at a really deep discount. And then you basically have the scouts that are finding these good deals, and then the scouts will tell the investor, "Hey, I have a really good deal for you, and you may not have the time to find it." Is that fair to say?
Yeah, exactly. So we're the the deal hunters.
That nice, nice. That's wonderful. And so when you're looking for houses, how do you actually determine if something is a good deal or not?
Well, most of the time you can tell by the exterior, the appearance of the property. The grass is usually, knee high. Uh, Windows are boarded up. There's you know, there could be some junk in the front yard, some abandoned cars, different things like that. Or it could be a foreclosure property, and it could be, your neighbor you don't even know. So it really varies. Uh, grandma's property. Grandma passed away. The house is clean. It's outdated. Those are probate properties. There's a lot of different lead sources that we go after. It could be like code enforcement, where you see the long grass, probate, grandma's house, foreclosure, divorce. There's a lot of different ways to source these properties.
And so with the size of the property, so what is one of your smaller deals and what's one of the bigger purchases that you've made or one of the biggest wholesales that you've done?
Yeah, so we've done. I'd probably say the smallest is probably like a $30,000 house in Detroit, Michigan. And actually, we just closed the biggest one. I have this. This is where the check is from. It was a $200,000 one,
Wow.
and that was in San Francisco Bay Area. So that was one. We got it under contract for 1.6 million, and we resold it for 1.8 million about 2 weeks later.
That's pretty phenomenal. How much time did it take you to find that 1.8 that 1.6 million dollar house then?
Yeah, it's funny because you'll have some of these smaller deals and there's so much headache, so much problems, and this one was actually pretty straightforward. We had a cold caller. Actually, one of our cold callers found it. She called a probate list, and that's one where family members passed away. They leave the property to the heirs, and there's one heir, a daughter, and we had cold called her, and she said she had about 50 people going after the property. Some big players that were all over TV and stuff too, and I got the chance to get on the phone with her, talk to her briefly, get some information. She liked our conversation, and a couple of days later, I went and met her at the property and took a look around. Gave her a price. She agreed to it, and probably 1 hour conversation on the phone with her, walking the property, and then we got under contract. And there's a couple investors that we know that flip heavily in the area. We gave them a call. They took a look around, and one of them wanted it for the 1.8. So it was all, I was, we were thinking about how much time it actually took. It was like 2 hours of actually working on the deal.
2
So
hours, $200,000, not too shabby.
yeah, the best deal yet for me. So I was pretty stoked.
That's really cool. And so out of all these cold calls that you're doing, so what's the conversion rate for you guys?
Yeah, the cold call conversion rate's really low. It ranges from 1 to about 7%. So it's a little range. It depends on the lead source. Um, Probates, we know that they most of the time 90% of those want to sell, but then sometimes you're calling high equity or free and clear properties, and some people are living in their house until they die. Some are they mom and pop landlords. They have 4 or 5 properties they might want to sell. So it really varies on the lead source.
Well, very interesting. And how did you first get into wholesaling? What were you doing, before 4 years ago?
Yeah, it's a funny story. I was actually working at a hospital up near in the San Francisco Bay Area. I had my MBA. I was working in healthcare administration and management. There was a CEO change, got rid of my position, so I got laid off, and I was kind of looking for other jobs. I didn't want to move again. I'd probably have to relocate. And I was on YouTube looking around like real estate. How you see all the ads and stuff. How did I get started with no money? And I actually started learning from there. There was a friend of a friend who was actually maybe a couple months ahead of me, so we kind of started learning together, and that's how it started. It took me 87 days to get my first deal of cold calling, about 8 to 10 hours a day. So I
Wow.
tell people that, and they're like, wow, because a lot of people want to quit, after a couple weeks. And I gave myself a 3 month time period, so I was almost about to quit. I was about 1 week away, and I got a foreclosure deal from a seller that told me to f off like a couple weeks before, and now he was getting that last letter from the from the lender saying, "Hey, we're going to foreclose on you." He called me and said, "Hey, how can you help me?" And I was kind of like stunned when he called because I remember him cussing me out.
Wow. That's quite a turn of events.
Yeah, yeah. So it was a $15,000 deal, and it was actually a manufactured home on an owned piece of land.
Gotcha. Were there any books or other like resources that you found really helpful, like Bigger Pockets? What were you looking at? I'm just curious.
Yeah, tons of YouTube University, Bigger Pockets, and actually there's a ton of information on all the different Facebook groups. So you know, anywhere I could find information on the internet, I was going there and just learning as much as I can.
That's really cool. And so for someone so I think you really touched upon this actually just now, that people give up after a few weeks. So what kind of person really is going to be thriving in the wholesale business? What kind of personality do you need to have, would you say?
Well, a lot of like people that have sales backgrounds do really good. I have no sales background, just management. And you really got to have that persistence and determination. You hear about it in all the different podcasts and social media. You have to know your why, what's your purpose. That really does help you, like drive you when, in those days when you want to quit and go back to a 9 to 5. I that's happened to me a few times. It's definitely been a roller coaster. But yeah, definitely got to have some grit and uh, and just some hard work.
Yeah. And can you ever see yourself going back to a 9 to 5 at this point? I don't think so.
No, I can't do it anymore.
I hear you. That's really cool. And so, can you talk a little bit about how technology has changed the way that you go about wholesaling? You talked about virtual assistants in the Philippines. What else has been really helpful to you with things tech wise?
um, yeah, I mean, I know when like wholesaling first started, they had those bandit signs. We buy houses cash. You have the mailers that people still do. It still works, those tried and true systems. But now it's a lot of cold calling. They have ringless voicemails where you're getting a voicemail directly to your phone, but there's no missed call. So it's dropping right in there and say, hey, I was calling to see about your property if you're interested in selling. So those are really cool. And then now, with the artificial intelligence stuff, there's a lot of stuff coming out. There's different apps you can do. That help with sales. A lot of even like PPC on the Google pay per click or the different Facebook ads. All the different ways that they can track someone that's interested and basically follow them around. You can't get rid of them after that point. And yeah, we're actually working on a AI SMS bot. So right now we're doing about 30,000 text messages. We have somebody who's responding to all of them that are interested only. So that's a small percentage, about 15% of 30,000. If they say yes, we're interested. So we're responding to them. We have preset messages. All the ones that say no, we don't even respond to most of the time because it's just too much for the person to go to. So now we're working on that AI bot who can respond to these messages, to all the messages, and it has the philosophy, the brain of Grant Cardone and Tony Robbins built into it.
That's not too shabby.
Yeah, so it's really awesome. It's smart. You would never be able to tell it's a bot. So
that's pretty amazing. Yeah, I would love to have Grant Cardone and Tony Robbins doing my text messaging for me. Yeah. That's cool. And so I wanted to go back to the question of maintaining relationships with your investors. How do you go about finding people that want to invest? So when you get that paper, how do you find people that really want to close on these deals then?
Yeah, so I guess not the old school way, but the traditional way is by you can pull a list of all the investors who've bought. Say you found a house in your neighborhood, you can pull a list of all the investors or cash buyers who've bought in property, say the last 3 years. All the transactions were cash, they're actively buying, and you can skip trace them, which is basically you use a program, and you input the address, and you can pull up the owner's phone number, name, even their relatives, and you can call them, email them, text them, and basically make contact with them and ask them, say, hey, I have this house on 123 Main Street. It's for sale for $200,000. The after repair value is $320,000 and needs $50,000 in repairs. So there's margin there. And they're either going to say yes, they're interested, or no. And that's basically how you find a buyer. But now we're doing a newer method. It's called it's been around for a while, but it's starting to get into the circulation of wholesalers and investors, called the novations. So what that method is, we're talking to the seller. Instead of saying, hey, we can give you a cash offer of 50 to 70% of the after repair value, we're saying, hey, we can find you a third party buyer, and instead of 50 to 70% price, we can give you a 70 to even 85%. So we can give you more money for the property. But what we're then doing is we're listing the house on the MLS for sale and for the whole world to see. So it's really good. It's popular. It's getting a lot of traction right now. Sellers can make more money. We can get more offers accepted, and then we can get higher prices for the wholesaler also.
Very cool. What would you say some of the challenges with wholesaling are? What are some challenges that are inherent to the business?
Challenges. It's a lot harder than it seems to find a deal. On TV and YouTube, social media, it might seem easier, but it's a lot of work, and there's a lot of grind to it, behind the scenes. So it's not as easy as it looks, but it's definitely a lot better when you get a team together. So it's really finding that property. It's kind of like a needle in a haystack. You could say that.
Definitely. And so in the past couple of years, there's been a lot of market fluctuation with interest rates going way down to now interest rates are up, and we're having a reduction in supply. How have the market conditions impacted your wholesaling?
Yeah, for wholesaling, those they're mostly off market and distressed properties. So it did affect the the buyers that were buying the property. It really slowed down last year a lot. But wholesaling did affect it. You got to adjust your numbers. Wherever the market goes, you have to adjust your offers, you adjust your numbers to shift with the market. But as far as house flipping, actually I had 2 flips last year when the market changed. I ended up losing money on both of those. Because when the market changed, the interest rates went up, the numbers, everything's all moving. And
Sure.
that really affected things. So I ended up getting like about $30,000 less on each of those than I was expected to get. So, I ended up taking a couple of losses on those. One of them I made into an Airbnb, and I still have it right now. It's actually selling in the next couple of weeks. So I had it for about a full year. So definitely, a lot of people went out of business last year, wholesalers and house flippers. If you lost money or you couldn't make any money with the changes, you had to really adapt quickly.
Yeah, it seems like you are able to adapt and you have that winning formula.
Yeah, thank you, man. I hope so. I made it this far, so I'm trying to keep it going.
Very cool. And so you said you're focused on California and Texas. So obviously you're located in California, but what got you interested in Texas?
Yeah, so I got into Texas actually in January. Before that, I was a little bit in North Carolina, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Michigan. But with the lower price point homes, you get lower assignment fees. There's just less spread there because of the purchase price. So, you get a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 every now and then. But for Texas, you have the a lot of the prices are almost like California now. So you have 200, 300, 5, 6, Austin, getting up to 8, 900,000. So you can make, $30,000 spread minimum is what we go for. Sure. But you can get, those $70,000, $80,000. So you really get bigger spreads in those different areas. And Texas is one of the top 5 in states that have the most investor activity. So that's kind of how we ended up out there.
Yeah, very cool. And so, what do you have your sights on next? What's next for Maxim?
Man, we're trying to do some more. Definitely expand. Get into some out of state rentals. Build a portfolio. The plan is to get into some multifamily. I think every wholesaler, you start out wholesaling, you go to single family flipping, and you start getting into multifamily. A lot of guys get into commercial, industrial. So I'm working my way up the ranks right now.
Yeah, where do you see yourself in like 5 or 10 years from now? Where would you like to be?
Man, 5 to 10 years from now, I'd like to.
5 years.
Yeah, 5 years. I'd like to have a few different offices, different locations, and each location doing a couple $1 million per year, wholesaling. Then also flipping, have a whole flipping operation automated, and doing some big investments, some multifamily, commercial investing.
Very cool. And so, if people want to work with you, how can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram at investor _ Gary Garcia, or you at my website, maximcapital.org, or we just have a new website for wholesalers to do joint ventures with us and partner on deals, novationpartner.com. And yeah, those are probably the best sources right there.
Nice. I think we actually made it through my questions. Is there anything else you think we should touch on that's worth it? I think we covered a lot.
I don't know. Let me see. Yeah, I think we covered. I mean, basically the meat and potatoes of things.
Cool. Great. So I'm just going to say, a little thing. I'll just thank you for coming on and hang on. Don't leave yet. But yeah, I'll just say my final goodbye. Okay. So Gary, thank you so much for spending the time with me today and talking about wholesaling and everything exciting that you're doing with Maxim.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Erik. I really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Take care.
Cool. Okay, that wasn't too bad.
I'm still trying to get the hang of this